Welcome to episode 17 of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. Chris Palmer, mental performance coach with Piranha Training. Jeff Lerg, goalie mentors, former professional hockey player. Every single week, we talk about things that are actionable, things that are usable. And this week, we're going to talk about something that doesn't just affect hockey, but affects people's entire lives. It's this idea of overcoming. Jeff, we have a guest today who is a living example of overcoming. He's a really humble guy, but when it comes down to it, the truth is of his life, he's found a way to overcome in one of the largest ways. And it's a role model for everyone.
Highly credentialed guest today, Rob Liddell, is here to join us. He's someone who I've known over 15 years, just coincidentally met through an acquaintance in the goalie coaching realm, and has established himself as one of the premier goalie coaches in the U.S. And he even receives students that come and fly in from Europe to come and train with him. So, Rob, we're fired up to have you on today. We've known each other a long time. Never really had a chance to dig into the details of your professional path and personal path as a goalie coach. So welcome on the Dialed and Driven podcast.
Appreciate it. It's good to be here.
The big question for me is how do you find a way to deal with this big giant elephant in the room? We haven't talked about this, but you're living with cancer.
Yep.
A kind of cancer that can't be fixed.
Yep.
Stage 4. And you don't know when it's going to happen. You don't know if it's 2 months. You don't know if it's 2 years. You don't know if it's 40 years.
Yep.
It's a really odd thing to live with. 3 parts of your body have cancer.
Yep.
Your liver, your arm, and your lungs.
Yep.
And you're still somehow known as being a guy who cares about people, a guy who always shows up, a guy who's organized, driven, completely dialed into what you're doing with a sense of purpose that everybody knows about. People come to you because of this thing. How is it that you can keep so focused and so motivated to do this when you know that with kids, your wife, all of this, this has to be looming in some part of your head? How'd you get to this point where you can be so not only functional, but really useful and even inspirational to people?
I don't know. I think you get to a place where you just kind of have to compartmentalize it. I think that, at least for me, you're faced with a very binary choice. You get the diagnosis and, you can run from it and you can try to hide in it and kind of feel sorry for yourself and wallow in it, or you can attack it. Right. And I kind of had that mentality from the get-go that I was like, okay, I have too many people that are relying on me. I have a wife that's relying on me to beat this thing. We don't even have kids yet. I'm 30 years old, and they tell you have stage 4. You're like, and the message is okay, if you ever want to have kids, you should start now. Because if you ever have to go on chemo, the type of chemo they would give me is you're never going to have kids. And so you just kind of get faced with these real big decisions where everything else just kind of feels very small. I spent my entire life worrying about things that are so stupid because you have these massive things that are staring you in the face hey, you have to deal with this now. So I think having to slow down and really evaluate some of those things, you kind of just, I guess, have to pick who you want to be. And I guess I chose the latter. It didn't really feel like much of a decision to me. You kind of just, like I said, I buried myself in the work because it made it easier to kind of forget everything else that was going on. So where I think it might look from the outside, wouldn't you want to do this or wouldn't you want to stop? No, I want to coach more. Especially in the early days when I didn't really know how it was going to go. We're in year 5 now, year 1. I had surgery. I couldn't wait to get back on the ice. I couldn't wait to get back in the trenches with the guys. I just wanted to be on the ice, do the thing that I knew how to do because it made me feel normal. It made me feel okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. I don't know how this thing is going to go, but if I just get back to work, then at least I can focus on something. At least I can do something productive. And I ultimately think that sense of purpose probably helped me, just feel normal, have that sense of okay, I'm not a cancer patient. I'm just a regular person who's just trying to do this thing. And then it's just 2 different people, I have this stuff that I'm handling over here and you just lock it down and you just try to bury it as much as you can. And then I have this I still have to get up every day. I still have to go to work. I still have to make money. I still have to try to provide a living for my family. I don't get the choice to just sit at home and cry about it. So you might as well.
But some people understandably sit home and cry about it.
Yeah.
And I understand. And just to be clear, for the listeners who are here with us now, your overcoming is at the most extreme. I mean, overcoming not knowing when this is going to happen is a horrifically giant thing. The overcoming a lot of kids see is, and I mean kids at every level, even guys in the NHL, they're overcoming this happened, or I got benched, or my coach isn't giving me the time I want to have, or worse yet, goalies. So many coaches are like, I don't understand goalies. Goalie just sits there. He's not part of the team meeting. He's out there doing his thing, and then he gets screamed at, as if this guy has any kind of understanding. But the goalie thinks a different world, and it's so hard for these guys. So there's all these little micro overcomings that they have to deal with. Yeah. But you have a sensitivity and a compassion and really a sense of mission about helping specifically goalies who go through this kind of hell, and goalies who maybe haven't had it made, haven't had the nice path that's all clean. It's a driving force for you. Like, you actually care about these guys having a life. Where did that come from? Because it's missing. It's so missing. This is a business, and I understand it's a business, but you make it more than a business. You actually care about people, and that leads to it being a profitable business. Yeah. How did you develop that, and why did you develop that? It'd be a lot easier just to be cold, right? Bring in another guy. Hey, let's get more people. Let's fill up the schedule. Yeah. But that's not how you do this.
I mean, I think somewhere along the lines, I heard like people over pucks. I think that was a Mitch Korn thing. Mm-hmm. And that kind of spoke to me, okay, if a guy at that level who's worked with Dominik Hasek and has worked with, Vezina winning, won a Stanley Cup, like if that's what his mentality is, very famously, like, okay, that's kind of always how I felt like things should go. So it clicked with me. And then I came across a quote, I can't even remember how many years ago, which is be who you needed when you were younger. I think that spoke to me as well. Like, I never really felt like I had good coaches. I had some guys who did care about me and who did invest in me, but I never felt like I had that with a specific goalie coach. I had some good influences, but I don't know. I always kind of felt like I was kind of the guy that was on the outside looking in. Like I didn't really fit in with people, or whether that's what the reality of my situation was, or that was just what I felt like. I kind of just wanted to be somebody for somebody. I just wanted to be that person that they could lean on, that, they could call at 11 o'clock after a tough game, or that, they wanted to give good news to. Like, it just kind of is the teacher in me, I guess. Like I went to teaching school because I thought I wanted to be a teacher, and you get wrapped up in that stuff. And I think I've always had a passion for helping people learn things. And I think the caring about people part is it's what it has to be for me. Because if it's not about trying to help people, if it's not about trying to push other people forward, then it becomes about me and my own ego. And it's just not ever been something I'm super interested in.
And that's who you are. We met in 2008, 2009, somewhere in that time frame. You were still a college student. I was as well. We were working a goalie school. It was my first crack at kind of putting an organized camp together. And one of our coworkers went to school with you. He brought you on. And then from the second I met you way back then, we were just coworkers together at this camp. And you were someone who I looked and was like, this guy loves it. Like, we've had many instructors come through the ranks through the years, and you can tell who's just kind of there punching the clock, looking for summer lunch money, and who actually loves it and wants to do their best. And from the second that I met you, you could see the passion. You could see that you did care about the product that you put out and the people that you wanted to inspire and help. And then through your life, you at one point made the career decision to pursue full-time goalie coaching. Yep. We had been connected throughout, just through conversations. I went on and played. You were around the market, really establishing yourself to be a high-level goalie coach, which you are kind of now at the premier level, which is awesome. And at some point you made that decision, and then this news came out, of course, your health diagnosis. But I think, and even just listening to you kind of talk through it, who you are as a person really just came to light. You're a caring person who does their best, tries their hardest, has now become very inspiring to others. And I think, and I know that's why goaltenders in particular, as you're in this profession, they connect with you. Because you're not just this guy who says, hey, fill me up, punch the clock, in and out, one in, one out with no conversation, no care. Like you're detailed in the way you operate. you provide as much knowledge and education to them as possible. And then you feel those goaltenders' success because you know how much time and energy you've invested.
Yeah.
If you don't invest that time, you wouldn't feel those emotions when some of your premier goalies have elevated to the highest levels.
Yeah.
So it's really awesome to see how your care has elevated your professional path, and also how your caring and doing your best for others has kind of helped you through the cancer diagnosis and obviously where your life has taken you.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I mean, I think the highs are high and the lows are low. I don't know if I had to put a number on it, I would say I probably work with 50 or 60 people a year. And to some degree, some more than others. Some see me a couple times a week, a couple times a month. Some, maybe they come in for a week or two in the summer, but we talk throughout the year. Like, I always try to make a point to just stay in touch with everybody, to make sure that people understand it's not transactional for me, to make sure that they understand, like, hey, I actually do care. Like, even if you only came and saw me for a week, like, I want you to have a great season. Like, that week that we spent together, like, I hope you got a lot out of it. And so when people are going through tough times, it's definitely tough for me personally, because their success is personal to me. Like, it feels like I don't look at anything that anybody who works with me does. I don't ever want to take credit, because I'm just a small piece of that puzzle. But if they're struggling, I feel like I let them down, if that makes sense. Like, it's backwards. Most people in this business, they're there for all of the highs, and then you don't see anything about the lows, or you don't hear anything about the lows. For me, it's like I feel the lows because I feel like they're my fault almost. Like, I'll put the blame on myself first. If a guy's not prepared, if they have a tough season, I'm looking at what we did that off season, like what wasn't good enough. I'm not going, oh, they need to do this better, they need to whatever. It's not like I'm going to exonerate them of all blame, but I'm going to look inward at myself first. And then when they succeed, it's kind of like, okay, well, that's what we expected. Like, I expected you to win. So when you put that bar there, I don't know, it kind of just feels like, I don't want to say it's tough to enjoy it sometimes, but it kind of is. It's kind of like, okay, well, that's what we expected, and then when you lose, it's like, okay, well, that's my fault. I need to fix that kind of thing. So, and
we get that as, the expectations are built so high, and you get to know your athletes, and then you help set those high expectations. You help them achieve some level of success. And then, as we've talked about in our episodes, like, their internal confidence grows. The peak of the goals they're setting, those start to grow. People that have had a little success get hungrier for more success.
Yep.
And you help inspire them and help them get to those points. And one of the things I do want to switch gears that we haven't really discussed in true detail is, being that you've worked with so many goaltenders really from all over the world, you've seen some goalies that have been kind of the premier prospect in their early teens who maybe didn't pan out. You've seen some others who were kind of just those no names in a sense, that have truly blossomed into big names.
Yep.
So maybe you can touch on some of the themes that you've seen, and maybe some of the characteristics that you can look back on that were displayed to make those situations occur, the no-namers rising to the top specifically.
Yeah, I think I struggle with it because I feel like it's kind of the environment that we create sometimes. In Detroit specifically, but I've talked to enough people around the country with youth hockey where I feel like we create this environment with these kids where it's like they play AAA their entire lives. And then especially with goalies, because there's only two jobs on any given team. They see their friends start to move on. Guys start to get drafted in the USHL, and they start to get, at some point get drafted to the NHL. And, you have these conversations with goalies who've been good their entire lives, and they kind of just feel like, well, when's it my turn? When's it my turn? When's it my turn? And there are people who can handle that, and there are people who can't. So I think when you get these kids their entire lives who've been special, and they're the best, and they're the best, and they're the best, and they've never really had to try out for a team before because they constantly always have offers. Hey, I want you to come play for me. Hey, I want you to come play for me. Just kind of like feels like this system builds them up. And then if they don't grow, or they don't, unless you're Jeff Lerg and you play pro at 5'7".
Well, I didn't grow, by the way.
Which is a tough thing.
Yeah.
But very often it's like you get these kids who are really big when they're young, and everyone, oh my God, they're so good because they're so big and they fill so much net, but they can't skate, or they don't work very hard, and they're not driven to become better. They kind of just float. So there are those guys who have the skill, but they don't have the work ethic. Right? Have you ever seen the graphic that you get the A in talent kids, but the B in work ethic, or whatever? That I'm not versed well enough in it to be able to quote it on a podcast, but you get those guys that are the A in talent but have zero work ethic, and then you have the opposite end of the spectrum where they don't have the talent but they have the work ethic, and then you get the B right in the middle. And to me, I feel like those are the ones who end up making it the longest because they've really had to work and they've really had to grind because they actually love it. Where for most people, myself included to a certain degree, they just like things that they're good at. So if you're good at something your whole life naturally as a kid, you're going to want to continue to do it. Oh man, my kid, they love it. They're obsessed with it. Okay, when you're 14, 15 and all your buddies are starting to become better than you, and this kid that you were way better than 5 years ago is now just as good as you, do you really love it? Like, and they get faced with that, you know, and they're also teenagers now. So there's other stuff. There's relationships, there's other sports, there's other ways that they can spend their time. And so you have these kids who their entire lives up to a certain point have just been focused on hockey, and they either get burnt out or they're faced with that identity crisis of like, oh, maybe I'm not as good as everyone always told me I was, or maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was. And they don't know how to push through that. They don't know how to overcome that small adversity, and they just go off the deep end the other way. And then you've got the guys like the Cooper Blacks or the John Lefmans who were never the best guy, and they were never this, and they, you know, got cut from AAA or whatever, and they had to grind and play high school hockey. I have so many accounts of guys like that who made it to Division I. You know, Sammy Vola, Robbie Paydoon, Tyler Parsons played Tier 2 his entire life and was a Memorial Cup World Junior champion, and then didn't make it to the NHL after that, after being a second round draft pick. Like, those are real stories that I think people need to hear, because all we grow up, I feel like, as goalies idolizing are like the Carey Prices. I'm certainly not saying that he had it easy, but you see the win at the end. You see, oh man, this guy's the best goalie in the NHL. Like, you don't see the 10 or 20 years before where they weren't the best kid in their age group, right? So believe it or not, and this isn't just because you're here, I remember watching his homecoming at Michigan State, like his coming out party, whatever you would call it, where like he took the net in the middle of the GLI. I was there. I was at that game. I had read the articles in USA Hockey. Oh, this guy just won USA Hockey Player of the Year. He just won Goalie of the Year in the USHL. He's 5'7", I'm 5'7". He has asthma. I have asthma. As I'm doing my breathing treatment at the kitchen table, like, that was who I idolized, was somebody like that who had to work for it. I didn't realize at that time that I didn't have the work ethic, right? I didn't know what I didn't know. I was a late bloomer in terms of starting hockey, but I think we've got to do a better job as a culture, just being really real with youth athletes. Hey, this is what it's going to take. And if you're not willing to give that, that's okay. But if you really want to do the things that you say you want to do, there's this whole other spectrum of things that you need to be doing at a certain point so that you can actually make it there, because that's what these guys have had to do. And then you get your unicorns. You get your guys who are naturally skilled, or girls, you know, who are naturally skilled, who also work really hard, who are also very driven, and they're Olympians. They're the best who have ever done it ever. And they're one in a generation. The Sidney Crosbys, the McDavids, the guys who have the third line work ethic with the first line talent. And so goalie wise, I feel like that's more of the mentality I feel like we need to create. Is it has to be about the work ethic. It has to be about the details. It has to be about the day to day. And I think hopefully if we can do that, we'll see less of those kids come through who grow to just hate it because they can't stick it out. Because the reality is we don't peak until we're 20, 22, 23, 24 years old.
Yeah, the goaltending position, there's the scientific data on that in the NHL teams. That's how they draft. They look for that long-term prospect who's going to peak at that age you referenced, because they know that 15-year-old stud who's always been on the top tier 1 team and he's winning national championships because his team is loaded with top-end players.
Yeah.
He might sputter out by 19, 20 because all of a sudden he might not have those inherent traits that you're referencing.
Yeah.
And some of those names you referenced, just to give some context, those were all kind of high school to low level teenage players in terms of where they played.
Yeah.
The John Letherman and Robbie Paydoon and Cooper Black, and then those guys all respectively went on to their Division I college hockey programs and then played some level of pro hockey.
Yeah.
And you were exposed also, just to kind of fill in some more of the personnel you've been able to train. A guy like Jimmy Howard, Detroit legendary goalie in my opinion.
Yeah.
Andrew Hammond, another guy who kind of carved out an amazing peak in his pro career. So you have some awesome, you have a full Hall of Fame list of goalies that we could run down, but really the point that we have is you had a handful of those kids that you referenced, they connected with you.
Yeah.
You know, you had referenced, I'm just this kind of 5'7", no-name goalie coach that's just going to grind it out and give my best and show that I care because I do care. put all the time and energy and effort in. And I feel that all those athletes connected with you.
Yeah.
And we can call it a coincidence or not. They all got to some of the highest levels of play. So I wanted to reference that just because.
I'm 5'10" now for the record.
Okay, got it.
I grew late.
Got it. Didn't think I'd look eye to eye with you. So anyways, I think that's all relative to who you are as a person and kind of all ties in with the whole nature of our discussion here.
Yeah.
So I see this theme developing, and it's so cool because you told me before we were recording today, you always kind of cared about people, but it really, really accelerated as kind of a sense of purpose for you, especially after the cancer stuff.
Yeah.
And we know that people are people. People want to be connected. We're not machines. And even goalies, as good as they can be at locking in, they have emotions. Every single person, and this isn't just for goalies, every single person involved with this, including coaches, including GMs, everybody's trying to keep their job. Everybody's trying to make money. I remember sitting a public forum in Canada one summer, and coach from Michigan State, coach from Robert Morris University said, hey, we wish that we had more time for A, B, and C, but when it comes down to it, we've got to win games or we can't pay for our families and we won't keep our job. And we understand that. I mean, we just had Newsy in here who, actually moved Detroit farther along and lost his job along with a whole bunch of other really good coaches this year. So it is a business, and it's a harsh business. I'll use a stupid example. I don't know if you remember, orange juice used to come in 64-ounce containers. And little by little, it went to 59. Now it's at like 46. And, nobody waved a flag and said, hey, this is what we're doing. Just, it's a business. And they found a way just to keep kind of changing the shape of things to make it look kind of the same. Business is cutthroat. Survival is cutthroat. And I understand that. But John Cooper is an example. Before I ever knew that Jeff knew Cooper, one of the reasons why John Cooper is such a good coach is because he cares. And his guys know that he cares. This is the thing. It's the giant thing. And even in my own life, the coach that changed my life at 13 years old, he cared. And he didn't even know me. Yeah. I mean, like the guy comes to me and goes, you can be something because you already are something. That's changed my life. And this guy, he just proved to me that everything was your thoughts. And your thoughts started to change right around that time where you were figuring out the whole cancer thing. You went from being a guy who cared to a guy who cared even more. Can you tell me something about that development of purpose and what you would say now is your mission around, being a hockey coach? What's your mission now? Like if you had to really say, this is what I really give a crap about, because you do.
I mean, I think I didn't really realize it, but there was a period after I started to have success that it became about me for me, even if I didn't vocalize that. I had started to build a following on social media. And so then you have just this echo chamber of people who tell you how amazing you are all the time and pump your tires all the time. And you have some people on the internet who just like to write nasty comments on because they don't really understand. But for the most part, I started to build a following on Instagram just as a way to put things out there and kind of share some of the stuff that I had learned. And then that turned into, I'm actually good at this. My videos are getting, millions of views to a certain degree, which is crazy for a goalie coach. Like who watches a video of a guy making a glove save 1 million times? I don't know, but the algorithm liked it. So then you start to get to this place where, at least I did, without realizing it, that it became about me to a certain degree. I started to kind of give into that, well, if this is a business, then I have to act this way. If this is what it takes to be successful, then I need to just be more cutthroat, or I need to be more of this. I started to, I think, lose sight of the values, because you start making business decisions. I need to charge this so I can make this. I need to do this. I need to buy this much ice. I need to do this location. And you lose sight of just the organic nature of things. And I never had anybody tell me that, nobody that I worked with, I hope, felt that. But I felt it, and I don't think I realized I felt it until the pandemic. I had an opportunity to slow down. We all did. We had to. And it was like a truck hit me, Okay, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive next year. Why have I been worried about all these things? I've been so focused and so driven on my career and proving people wrong, because I had a lot of people tell me I wasn't going to make it. I was just a dime a dozen coach. I wasn't special. I wasn't this. And so I got wrapped up in having that chip on my shoulder, where again, now it became about me. I started to have success, and I was like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do this. Instead of it being about the people, for me internally, it was about proving other people wrong. So I used that negativity, that negative emotion to really drive me to the point of insanity. Before I quit my job, I was working a corporate job and probably doing 70, 80 hour weeks, 40-hour work week and 30 hours a week of coaching. No exaggeration. Never saw my girlfriend, who is my wife now. I don't know how we're still together. I buried myself in it because I had this obsessive drive to prove people wrong. And then I got, again, to cancer diagnosis during the pandemic and kind of just like realized how stupid that was. Like I've spent so many years of my life living in this negative emotion. And then you have to pause because I'm stuck at home, I'm not making money. You start worrying, okay, can we pay our bills? Can we do all these things? And then you get hit with that cancer diagnosis. Like, okay, none of that stuff even matters. Like I just need to be here next year. I don't know. I kind of had to just reflect on what my why was. And I know that's corny, I know that's cliche, and then I started to go back to, okay, like I have to go back to the mentality of how I felt before I started having success at this. And that was like, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this because I want to be somebody who cares about other people. And I had to double down on that. Like as opposed to, I could have gone right back to just doing things the way that I did because I was successful. And like I never lost sight of caring about people. But again, to me internally, I had all of this pressure I was putting on myself to be successful, to prove other people wrong, or to get to this, to chase the ladder, to chase the dream, when that's never what it was about for me in the first place. It was about teaching people and helping people. And so pandemic and diagnosis kind of just like helped lock me back into, okay, especially early on, you don't really know what's going on. They tell you have stage 4. Originally, they just give you a diagnosis. They tell you have stage 4. And they say, oh, well, your prognosis could be this. It could be this. There's a lot of ifs. There's not a lot of clear solutions with what I have. So I feel like mentally I had to approach it like, okay, if I'm not here in 5 years, can I leave something behind that I'm proud of? Can I be somebody who,
I'm so glad you're sharing this, by the way.
I kind of just had to regroup mentally and decide who I wanted to be.
I just got to tell you, and I know people can't see this, the guys who are just listening to this, but Rob will never tell you this, but he's a badass. There's guys in the NHL who seek him out, as well as guys he's developed to be good enough to be in the NHL, and he would never tell you that. And the main thing for him is that he gives such a crap. He's so skilled. He knows all the technician stuff, but he gives a crap, and his reputation is a guy who gives a crap. And he's sitting here welling up because this is all so big to him. This is the literal meaning of his life. When you finally decided to go back to the core of who you are, to be this guy who cares, to be this guy who gives people things that they're missing in this business that doesn't give a shit about people, because sometimes it doesn't give a shit about people. And it's nothing personal. It's just a business. That sense of purpose, that renewed sense of purpose, didn't change everything for how you coach, didn't change everything about the outcomes for people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels good to feel like I'm doing it for the right reasons again. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a business. I still make business decisions every day. Where can I buy this ice? How can I, if I do this lesson here, if I add this hour. But now it's kind of like, if it doesn't enrich, if it's not going to help my family, if it's not going to benefit myself and my kids or the people that I care about, that I surround myself with, it just kind of goes out the window. It kind of allowed me to, I guess, narrow my focus back down to, okay, I've got to do it this way. I'm not interested in the way anybody else does it. I'm not interested in maximizing my profit. I'm not interested in doing these things. Like, I want to just be who I am and help good people. And if that means I do less lessons and make less money, because before I came to Future Pro, I was just doing private lessons, and you can only do so many private lessons in a day, like physically, especially, last year, even going through radiation, like you're just tired. And this 2 years ago now, I guess it felt like it was last year, but it feels good to just feel like I can look myself in the mirror every day and know that I'm doing this for the right reasons again. And again, it's not to say that I'm not worried about, profit or these other things. Like, this is how I feed my kids, right? But I'll lose money over losing a relationship with somebody. I'm very secure with that. I'm very okay with that.
The thing that's so valuable about this for people who are listening is at whatever level of listener we have, I don't care if you're an 8-year-old kid in the house league who's bumping your head on wishing you could get to another team, or if you're somebody who's in juniors and your parents have given up on you and you're rolling freaking burritos at Chipotle to keep going your dream. No matter where you are, it's so easy to let circumstances stop you. It's so easy just to be rolled over. And you have the worst possible circumstances. So all the circumstances are here, all the things that are painful, all the things that we hit our heads on, seems like one of the big answers to get through this is to really have some sense of mission and purpose that's bigger than all the crap so you can fight through. And you're like a role model of that. I mean, Jeff, would you agree?
Yeah, and Rob, obviously, there's a reason why we wanted you on here. There's a reason why we asked, hey, are you comfortable kind of going through some of your medical history, your health, because you are highly inspirational. You're someone who goes down for treatments and then is like, yeah, I'll probably still be able to get back and get on the ice by 4 p.m. that day. I should be good. Like, you're not one that uses that as a crutch. Yep. And you're just one that wants to give their absolute best, who wants to do their best for not only yourself, but for others. You're extremely mentally tough. You are so dialed in on what you're trying to accomplish as a big picture for everyone involved in this game, in this position. And it's really awesome being able to have you as a coworker together, being around you in the summer. We'll be around each other more day to day, but throughout the season, we're collaboratively together on a lot of things. And I think for the young athletes, for parents, this gives them all perspective.
Yep.
Like you have this phrase you like to reference, like no bad days.
Yep.
And you live in the moment for each day. And we all know in this sport, like how these little things, and especially in the emotional sport of youth hockey, people just get overblown on the littlest things. And here's you, just, hey, I'm going to treatments and still trying to get back on the ice with your son or daughter, and you're going to complain about what? So it's truly awesome that, who you are, how you've handled everything in your life. There's a reason that I love having you being a part of our goalie staff and all the other athletic endeavors that we're in, and truly appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story, sharing a little bit more on who you are. Not just this awesome, technically skilled goalie coach, but there's way more to you than that. And with that, before Chris wraps up, is there any last advice or anything that you can kind of give to our audience of parents, coaches, and youth athletes?
I think you hit the nail on the head with the fact that there are a lot of things that feel like they're a big deal that really aren't a big deal. And it's not to diminish what anybody's going through or anybody's feelings about a certain thing, but I think the one thing that I've been able to do the last couple of years is try to get outside of myself a little bit and look down at my life and like, okay, is this really as important as I'm making it? Or is it just a moment in time? I saw a reel the other day, and it was like a tree split in half, and it was the winter season and it was the fall season with all the leaves on it, and it was like the same or different, same tree, different season. And so there are a lot of things out there that speak to me that's I always try to share those things like on my story or on social media, because those are the things that motivate me. Like I feel like a lot of people feel like they would look at my social media and think that I'm sharing that out of some vested interest or something. It's like, no, I saw this and it inspired me. So that's how I continue to keep going. There are days where I have to remind myself this isn't that big of a deal. There are days where I have to remind myself, like, okay, at the end of the day, you're going to go home and you're going to put your kids to bed. So it's really, really, really easy to get wrapped up in the minutia, and I still struggle with it every day. Today, yesterday, tomorrow. But the one thing I've been able to do, I guess, is get that perspective from some of the things that I've been through in life and remind myself that if I can do that, I can do whatever. Like if I can go to radiation treatments and go right from there to the rink because I've got somebody who's getting ready for Youth Olympics and I can't let them down, and I'm tired and I'm exhausted, but I don't think I can do it, then the days where I don't want to get on the treadmill, I'm just going to get on the treadmill. Like, what am I talking about? I can't, you have to, I think everybody, including myself, you have to find those things for yourself that drive you on the days where you don't feel like you can keep going, because you can.
That's awesome. I think just to wrap up, one, I'm really grateful you're here, and I'm so grateful you're entirely who you were today, including the times when it was hard to talk about it. But just as a summary for everybody, Ron Howard is a famous director, and he said that he's heard people say there's 5 stories in life. The only compelling reason to watch any movie is the story. There's 5 stories, but he says he really thinks there's one story. And lots of other people have said this, and that one story is overcoming. Story of life, whether you're 5'5" and you have asthma, or whether you had cancer, or whether your mom dies, your dad dies, or let's take it down to a level that feels just as devastating in the beginning. Damn it, I didn't make the team. Damn it, the coach gave this to somebody else. I'm getting benched. I don't know why. All these things are relative to what we've experienced, and they feel just as devastating when you're young. So whatever the disappointments are, the human story, the one we care about, is the overcoming. And you're a complete model of that. I'm so glad we got to elaborate that today. So in this summary of overcoming in hockey, which you're fully immersed in, this is really, really hard for you guys. At every single level, the things you're going through are so painful because you know and I know that as this thing gets squeezed, there's fewer and fewer opportunities at the top. And there's just people who are eliminated. And even the guys who make it to the top have an average of 6 years in their career, and then it's over. It's just over. I mean, do you really think Gretzky looked happy when he went off the ice years ago? He loves this sport. So in the end, everybody's going to have heartache. Everybody's going to have suffering. Everybody's going to have unfairnesses and things that happen and health scares and people who die and teams he didn't make. And man, I wish I had this. And all these guys are drafted at 15. Why wasn't I drafted? And not good enough. And all these things that just fall apart. But the story here, again, is this great idea that if you acknowledge what's going on, really make peace with what's going on, or express out what's going on, whatever your style is. And you find a way then to decide, what the hell do I want today? What's my sense of purpose? What's my freaking meaning? And if you get that as a mission, you get through the other crap, because your mission's so freaking important to you that everything else falls to the wayside. That's the way to get through. And Rob, you're a perfect example of that.
Yeah, awesome. You can see the passion in everyone here, and that's why we're here together, loving going through all this. Because Rob, thank you again for sharing who you are as a person. Chris, thank you for all your passion put into everything that you love to do with your mental performance. And for all those listeners and viewers, you guys can learn more about Rob. Follow him at Coach Liddell on social. And remember to stay dialed and stay driven on your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success in this sport. Continue to follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll chat again next week.
Thanks, guys.
Jeff Lerg! One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.